And I think that's going to be the future. There are some drugs. They're trying to block myostatin, if you guys know what that is, one of the governors
Uh-huh.
that we have on building muscle. So if you block myostatin, you don't have to do anything. You'll start building muscle. We've all seen the cow. Like there's probably like,
Yeah.
you could probably Google the
Yeah.
cow or
Yeah.
the
The
yeah.
milestone. Welcome to Iron Summit, the podcast where we dive deep into the art and science of becoming your best self, blending expert insights on strength training, smart recovery, optimal nutrition, and mindset mastery to help you elevate your game. All right, we are going. We have an awesome guest today. Super pumped to have Dr. Nadolski on. Most importantly, Dr. Nadolski was a heavyweight at University of Northern Carolina wrestler. And the most important thing about that is he was a heavyweight.
That's right.
Just to point that out to Ryan. But Dr. Nadolski is also a board certified physician specializing in obesity medicine and lipidology. Also the founder of, is it Vineyard or Vineyard?
Vineyard. Yeah. Vineyard.
Vineyard, which is an online medical weight management program that focuses on GLP-1 medicines with an emphasis on body composition and strength training. But also just one of the kind of the more well followed and foremost voices in this world of obesity medicine and the science surrounding it. So pleasure to have you on. Did I
Thanks
miss
for having
anything?
me, guys. No, it's good. You're good.
Co-host of Docs Who Lift
Docs Who Live
podcast.
podcast.
Yeah.
My brother, also an endocrinologist, obesity specialist, and former wrestler as well.
You guys must be close in age because I feel like your guys' lives align really well.
Yeah, he's 4 years. He's 4 years old, 4.5 years. So like, he's just leaves, high school. I come in and he just goes to college and then leaves college. I come in. It's just, yeah. So we're 4 years, but pretty
Yeah.
close.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What originally got you into wrestling?
Yeah, my dad was a wrestling coach in high school. So he was our wrestling coach. He was a biology teacher too. So we're really into science. And really, my story is different. My brother's like a 4-time state finalist, 2-time state champ in Michigan, really good. And I was terrible because like I just like, I don't know. My name's Nadolski. I'll be fine. But I was taller. He's like 5'5", really stocky. And I was taller and thinner and like not as strong pound for pound. And so like the way that I was terrible. I didn't even start my freshman year. Sophomore year, I went like 500, but freshman year, I was 140, 145, 189 as a sophomore and kind of coming into my own. I ended up really going through puberty right after my sophomore year and did pretty well at cadets, All-American 5th place, I believe it was. And that's when all of a sudden I was like, oh God, I think I'm filling out, got up to 215 pounds or so, and then won state the next year. And then went up to heavyweight my senior year. So really got into wrestling just because of my family, obviously, but really got good at wrestling using like hard work, obviously, but like science. I'm like, I'm not going to be good at like a lighter weight like my brother. I have to go big because I got to fill out. There's no way I'm going to beat these little guys at
That's
this
awesome.
strength.
But I had a super similar career path to you, like JV freshman.
You're lighter.
I was 140 as a freshman, and then 189 by a senior, but like cutting to make 189. So similar kind of career path. And also, you were definitely not a skinny guy in college. Like if you look at pictures of you wrestling at UNC, you were like the kind of heavyweight you like to watch.
Yeah, thick boy. But I still had blurry abs. That's my.
What'd you weigh when you were wrestling heavyweight?
So I was probably best when I was like 145. I got up to like 267 at one point. I was a little bit slower back then, but I was super strong. But I gassed. Like I was, someone on Twitter made a comment about how they got to change these rules where people can't just challenge. So, and because I was watching the finals the other day, and I think it was the Nebraska guy threw out and they're like, yeah, they're giving him a break. I'm like, damn, I wish my coach would have done it. Because I used to gas in the third period. I wish I could go back in time and figure it out. But like, I used to gas and I'm like, especially when I got really too big. I don't think I could handle that much weight on my frame or something. I don't know.
There's
Yeah.
definitely like a weird weight to like mass to conditioning ratio that's optimal.
Yeah.
And like in recent years, I think a lot of heavyweights have skewed towards going a little bit lighter and not just trying to be like mass monsters. Um,
Yeah.
but you're all right. You are right. There's some like gamesmanship and getting your coach is smart enough to throw a brick
So
when
I'm like,
you don't really know
I
that
needed
you
those
need one.
For
bricks.
sure.
I never
I
called
think
injury. I never called because injury timeouts is what people used to do, and I never did it. I was too prideful. But I'm like sitting there going like, God, I wish my coach had that brick challenge back then. And
yeah,
just knew, oh,
for sure.
Nadolski's he's gassing. Throw the brick.
Challenge it. Yeah, no, it's a real thing. And they all save the bricks for the finals. Like each one of those coaches has at least one challenge. So they're like, why not use it now? So each match has at
You
least one
got to.
challenge. Stop. Yeah.
Smart,
Um,
smart.
so what as you transition from wrestling into the world of medicine, what were like some of the biggest principles from wrestling that you used to in becoming a doctor? Where did it carry over?
Yeah. So this is if there are any doctors, anybody listening, especially if they wrestle, they'll know this. So everybody thinks that like medicine and going through the training is really hard, and it is. But like if you wrestled, and especially at the level, Division 1 level, um, if you went through that, it's just not. It made it easier because I don't know, I'm not going against another opponent and like dying at the end of the third period where I needed the brick. And people, you have to stay up late and going through and study a lot and all that stuff. But it just pales into comparison of like the intense training that you do in wrestling. And when you kind of come in, my brother said the same thing. It's just like, it just doesn't compare. So it made it easier. You got to be smart, obviously. You got to learn stuff. You got to be critical thinking, but in terms of like pure intensity of work that you put in, it made that transition easier than I noticed other people. They didn't have that same resilience. I could tell. I'm just like, oh, this isn't anything compared to wrestling, type of thing. So
It's the
that's the
Dan
biggest
Gable
takeaway.
quote. Once you've
Yeah,
wrestled,
I was
What is
gonna
everything
that?
else in
say
life
that.
is easy. Once you've wrestled in
It's
life,
true. It's
wrestled
true.
everything else in life is easy. Yeah, it is true.
It's true.
It's cliche,
I
and I feel like people don't get it, but it's true.
I sit there and I'm sure you guys do the same thing. You see the comments on like Facebook posts of like, Gable and whoever else is wrestling, and they're like, "Oh gosh, he should have done this and this." I'm like, "You guys never even wrestled at this
Yeah.
level or did anything. You don't even understand how much work they're putting in and what I get PTSD tired watching some of these matches because I'm like, "Oh my God, I would be dead." Like the NCAA finals where, Wyatt Hendrickson, I was sitting there like he turned it on right at the end. I'm like, man, like he had that little burst of energy at the end. I'm like, I don't know. I would have been trying to hold on the whole time. Like that would have been tough. So they don't understand the amount of effort that goes into making that, and the mindset too. The mindset is so important. And I honestly, I probably didn't have that mindset as much that I should have. And I'm still now learning now for when I do these business things, entrepreneurial stuff that I do. But yeah, it's such a good thing to go through to
Takes you a
learn.
lot. Yeah, it's wrestling teaches you. I think one of the I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's humility. Like a lot of people haven't had their ass kicked, and if you wrestled, you've had your ass kicked at least once, and probably a
Yeah,
lot more.
yeah, yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
back. So do you remember Cole Conrad? That's the guy. He's the one who he's
yeah.
from Minnesota, and that was probably the toughest guy I'd went against. I went against. Do you remember Tommy Rollins? He's kind of before your time. He
I
was the
used to train with
heavy.
Tommy. Oh
Okay,
yeah,
so like I wrestled him as a freshman when I was at Michigan State before I transferred to UNC, and I remember, like I kept it close. He took me down 2 times in the match, but like I remember going, geez, he was really good. And then it wasn't until I wrestled, Cole Conrad my senior year. He only took me down once, but like I was stalling my ass off. Like I'm not even gonna lie, because I'm like, I don't know what to do to this guy. I'm super strong, but this guy, he doesn't look like he's strong, but he's super strong. And like, it is, you get that humbling, uh, because like, and I don't think enough people have gotten their ass kicked. Like
Yeah.
everything in my power, that I just couldn't do anything to the guy. I'm like, man,
I think you're right too, like the kind of the man in the arena stuff. It's almost I feel like social media adds a whole new thing to it now too, where it's like you kind of got to stay offline because people have a lot of, opinions and stuff. And it's like 99% of those people that are, tweeting at an 18-year-old about how they did bad at a tournament, had never
terrible.
wrestled or, never prepared for something like that. So, and especially you had NIL and all these, the presidents at the NCAAs, like there's all these extra distractions. You got to really be good at kind of blocking out the noise.
Yeah.
Um, but it is funny every year. It seems like it's probably good for wrestling, like it's growing the sport and stuff. But you got to kind of manage it, especially if you get affected by that stuff. I wanted to ask you, did weight cutting culture, with wrestling kind of influence your career path? Because I think wrestlers kind of finish and they either go one of two ways where they're like, I'll never do something again. Like that was super hard. I'm not going to cut weight. I'll never restrict, calories again. Or they go to like, I figured out a way to make my body feel good and fuel and train. And like they stay generally fit the rest of their life. And I don't know. I don't see a lot of like in between normal people after college wrestling.
Yeah, so I never cut weight because I was one of those heavyweights again that had to like, like that everybody hated on the team because I could eat as much as I want and I had to eat because I whittled away type of thing but towards the end of the season. But the training and the understanding of the science behind it all. So I got obsessed with performance and science of performance of nutrition and exercise. Um, and you know, I everybody thought when I went to med school, I was gonna be a sports medicine doctor. I'm gonna help people become better athletes, but really, I didn't really care about that. I don't care if anybody like, I wanna bench press more and squat more or whatever, be faster. Um, but I didn't really, like, care about helping somebody go from, like, a 300-pound bench to, like, a 400-pound bench. It was just like, "Okay, cool." Like, that's nice, but, what I cared about was getting people that didn't do anything to doing something. Because when you take someone from 0 sedentary, terrible lifestyle to just a little bit better, that's where the biggest bang for the buck is, and it was just very fulfilling seeing people change their lives just from going from nothing to something consistently. So that's really what, sparked my interest because I was obsessed with it. I figured if I could take a fraction of my obsession and give it to a patient that doesn't have anything and see them change their lives around, that's what made me feel, it just gave me that good feeling.
Yeah,
That's
that's really
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. How about given what you know today, going through medical school, being in lipidology, having been a Division 1 wrestler and obsessed with performance and training, what's your current diet and training look like for yourself?
Yeah, I used to lift 4 to 5 times a week. Now I'm about 3 days a week, and I actually this was act one of the reasons I was probably so out of shape is probably because I didn't do enough of the cardio back. I just loved lifting, and I'm so what an
Yeah.
idiot. Like, such an idiot, but I was strong, and so if I could pin somebody in the first period, I was like, "Alright, sweet."
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so now I it's so funny. If somebody listens that remembers watching me, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that was him." I'd high crotch him, pick him up, and pin him type of thing, and if I didn't, I mean, like, man, the 3rd period was tough. So, or I gotta get the first takedown in the 1st or 2nd period, otherwise that 3rd period is stalling my ass off. But anyway, it was, cardio, like, aerobic training is now more a bigger part of my life. I actually run. I hated running as a heavyweight, and part of that is because it's, like, not comfortable
Yeah, it
as a
hurts.
heavyweight. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was not comfortable, like, and now I'm a leaner, like, 210 pounds instead of, like, 240, 250 or something like that. So I actually enjoy running. It feels good. I hated it as a heavyweight. And actually, patients, a lot of patients hate exercise because they have a lot of weight and that hurts their knees and whatever. Doesn't mean that all patients that have a lot of weight, some of them run marathons and things like that, but most of the time they feel like it's punishment and miserable. When you get them to lose weight, they feel good. And so I think that's part of me. Like, I feel good and I like running now. So that's the biggest change is from an exercise standpoint. From an eating standpoint, I ate like I was like a slob, but I looked still good, but it was because I was burning so much. I had a lot of muscle, but like I would eat pizzas and all sorts of stuff just to keep my weight on. And, my patients, when they hear that, they're always like, oh, no, good for you. Boo hoo. Cause like I'm trying to not eat so much pizza and I'm still gaining weight type of thing, but I had to eat it to keep on my weight. But now, it's a good dietary pattern of healthy proteins, healthy fat, fruits and vegetables, those types of things. I am a little bit more relaxed now than I was, like, say, 10 years ago. Um, and that's just because, but I don't eat as much of it necessarily. I still stay very lean, uh, and I still eat, for the most part, my dietary pattern is very, very healthy.
I think
Yeah.
it's cool that you really practice what you preach too, because I think there's a lot of disconnects sometimes with doctors and like how they live their life. If you have a doctor that's not healthy and they're telling you like you need to do this to be healthy, it's really hard to believe that. Um, so I think that just by like actually being authentic and living that it's probably a huge benefit to your clients. But then, what do you think is really like the reason for obesity growth in the United States? Because I mean, you got great job security right now. We're not in a great spot,
Yeah.
as a country. Um, ho- what do you think like the maybe top three contributing factors have been in increasing obesity in America?
Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of pinpointed onto our environment. I always talk about the genetics of obesity, but really what happened is that the genetics kind of load the gun. And this isn't my saying. There's a lot of very smart obesity specialists out there. Talk about this guy, Dr. George Brave, one of the big wigs of the obesity medicine world. But genetics load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So the genetics were always kind of there. But as this environment changed, and there's a lot of things that go into it, but essentially just highly ultra processed, easily overeaten, yummy foods. Because people will say, "But wait, back in the '50s, we had pies and cakes and stuff like that." Yeah, but we didn't have like Pringles and kettle chips that like they're designing the taste and the crunchiness and the saltiness to override our internal satiety signals. So the environment shifted in a way to where, like, the people back then who had higher weight genetics, they were heavier back then. They were heavier than an average person, but to us, they would have just looked like a probably a leaner person that we'd probably on average see now. But you'd see this big shift of all those people. So people that were really lean back then are still pretty lean now. People that were heavier back then are the types of people that are really heavy now. So you see this big shift, and it's driven by the environment. And that's, you know, there's there's of course the physical activity component. We got cars, we got you can order on with your thumb. Food comes to your doorway, which is
Yeah,
amazing. If you're into shawarma like I am, I'm like, "Oh, I don't feel like cooking, and just the shawarma comes to my door."
it's a random.
I
That's your
love
favorite,
I love
just shawarma.
shawarma. The
Okay.
chicken shawarma. I
Farmers,
actually
yeah.
have I have a vertical spit, where you put the stack on the
Yeah.
chicken thighs, and it roasts from the side because then you slice it and then it just keeps roasting. So you just keep slicing as it roasts. And I love it so
That's
much.
awesome.
I feel
That's
like
my
if
favorite.
people had a shawarma obsession, though, that'd be, that's not a bad thing to be obsessed with. It's a protein dense,
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
awesome. No, I think
Yeah.
it's so, if you look at the confluence of like prepackaged foods, which really didn't exist before like 1960, like even like to your point, you had pies and cakes, but you had to go
Yeah.
buy the ingredients and
Yeah.
make a cake. Like it took some
Yes.
work to get that cake. And now, yeah, you can have insomnia cookies delivered at your door, flavor of the week, milkshakes, like just
Max is
prepackaged
speaking from
foods.
experience.
He's like living back. When did you
Yeah,
graduate from Lehigh, right? It was Lehigh.
2016.
There you go. Did they have insomnia cookies there?
And milkshakes.
Not at
Milk.
I know. No, actually I was I've never, I don't know. I'd like to get your opinion on this because, and this kind of goes like nature versus nurture. Like I have never been one to enjoy sweets. Just didn't like it. That's not my thing. Like I love like if I'm gonna cheat or like have a high calorie meal, it'll be like I love salty, like a
Yeah, I'm
burger.
with you.
At Iron Summit, we are about getting everything we can out of our workouts and everyday lives. If you aren't wearing a pair of barefoot or wide toe box trainers, you are leaving gains on the table. The Sashi Athletics Ronin Ichi Minimalist Trainer is a perfect barefoot shoe. Not only does it perform like other major brands on the market, it is actually good looking. Even my wife says so. Get a pair today for 10% off with the code IronSummit10. Link is in the bio.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, like that's what gets me for sure. But like, how much of that is nature versus nurture? Is it like upbringing? Is it what you're exposed to as a child? Is it just genetics? And I know certain people have a much higher food preoccupation. Um, I'm for like I count myself like food, and maybe it's because of wrestling. Like it's a tool to me. I don't really think about it outside when I'm eating. Like, how does that like nature versus nurture uh, play into that for an individual?
Yeah, it's both, and it gets even more complex because what your mom eats, maybe even your dad, but what your mom eats during pregnancy can have an effect on the taste of what your baby prefers. Like, for example, like my wife ate a bunch of cucumber. I don't know, she loves cucumbers and pickles. Our kids love cucumbers and pickles, and they've done studies on this. So like, so you imagine, and that's why I say like, well, obesity is not necessarily somebody's fault per se. It's still it's their own responsibility because nobody else is going to be able to help them. But like, it's not necessarily their fault. So like, it's partly metabolic programming and genetics, but there's nurturing. If you didn't have access to that stuff when you're younger, like even people with high genetic propensity, when you look at their genes, and it looks like they're at high risk for developing obesity. If they're in a family that's very nurturing in a way, conducive to staying pretty lean and fit, they won't. They highly likely won't actually develop the obesity. So it's both. Yeah, I think I have a fat, salty tooth as well as I like sweets too once in a while, but like, man, give me some kettle chips and some French fries and a burger. I'm with you, man.
So
That's
what
where it's
about
at.
no, absolutely. What about like when you're thinking through this stuff with a patient, right? Like um seemingly like super simple but not easy of like, okay, move more, make sure you're eating whole foods, you're shopping with one ingredient foods on the outside of the grocery store, lean meats, don't have a lot of ultra processed stuff. Um, but the psychological part of it too, and I think about this in terms of, general population, but also like wrestling. I got a lot of buddies that once they finish wrestling, you're like, oh, he kind of like low key had a eating disorder. And I don't know. I just think the psychological part of it is a huge aspect that I'm sure you got to tackle. How do you think about that with patients and in changing, the psychological part of eating,
Yeah,
incorrectly or something like that?
the psychological. So I was just talking to a patient how her mom told her after she gained like 10 or 20 pounds, her mom told her at one point, "You've really put on a lot of weight, honey," and that like traumatized her. She had to go into had therapy and all sorts of stuff. So a lot of these adverse childhood events and these types of things, when you're younger, can have an effect on psychology. I am no psychologist. I am far from a psychologist. I talk to a lot of patients, so I have to kind of understand it. I work with psychologists and things like that. So like, I work on more of the biological standpoint because if you hit the biological receptors in a way with certain medicines, like we can talk about them, but like you can then free up the space to then work on the psychology if that biological component's there driving them and just like incessantly like telling them to eat, eat, eat. They can work on the psychology as much as they want, but like the biology just is the driver. So like but the psychology is important. Like there are some patients they'll get surgery, they'll be on medicine, and they'll still go, whatever. I'm just going to get candy bars from the store because there's no biological drive. There's no way there's a biological drive anymore if we just did all the different various therapies we had, unless they have a really strong genetic mutation of some sort. But it's rare, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
so like the psychological component is very difficult, but that's why I work on that biological center first. oftentimes because a lot of these people have tried the psychological uh, first, and they
Yeah.
tried it so many times, and I'm like, all right, let's do something different.
Can we talk about some of the biological factors? I know you mentioned like there's genetic markers. Maybe we can go through a couple of those on like what genetics would predispose you to being more likely to become obese. And then I know like blood sugar regulation is a huge biologic factor. What else is there outside of blood sugar and maybe some of these genetic markers?
Yeah, the thing that's the most important is the appetite centers of the brain, of the central nervous system. So the brain basically controls it. If you're, I mean, Ryan, I don't know how much weight you cut. You're pretty jacked, I'm pretty sure. I remember, right? You're pretty lean dude. So so I have a feeling you were cutting. I don't know how much, but you were probably pretty hungry at times, I
Yeah,
imagine, and craves food.
for sure.
Um, so imagine a patient trying to lose weight and they felt that way like constantly as they tried to lose weight, even though they're 300 pounds. Like
Yeah.
they're not like ripped like you were. It's like they just lost 20 pounds and they're like, oh gosh, I'm just so hungry. I know I need to eat fewer calories. And their brain is like basically saying, you're hungry, you need to eat more. That's so a lot of that is just the appetite centers, and there's multiple neuronal pathways in the brain that contribute to satiety and hunger and cravings. But that's the biggest one. We have, people are like, what about they must not burn as many calories. They have a low metabolic rate. But when we really look at it, it's mostly appetite driven. There are some variances in how many calories we burn and all that type of stuff, but it's appetite driven for the most part.
And is that going back to the nature versus nurture? Is that like, are you just born with a more appetite? Is it like what your mom ate when you were in the womb? Is it what foods you were exposed to as a child? Like
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
Yeah,
How does that all play into
it's
appetite?
it's actually it's a great question. There is a large genetic component to that, but as I said before, it doesn't guarantee somebody's going to gain a bunch of weight. So if you give somebody at an early age, even if they have a high genetic propensity, again, there are certain what we call monogenic, like one single gene deletion mutation that can screw them up no matter what type of lifestyle they do. But
Mhm.
that's rare. So let's just say they have multiple small genetic variants that are kind of look like they would develop obesity relative to somebody without those variants. You can, you put them in a nurturing environment that has mostly wholly unprocessed foods, filling, satiating foods, and you get them very physically active. They 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 don't go on to develop obesity. So a lot of it is like childhood upbringing. The other thing that people don't realize is that right now there's a big fight of like, no, we shouldn't medicate our way out of this. We should change our environment. We really need to do both. Because if we change the environment, what happens with appetite, when people gain a lot of weight, there are changes in the brain that occur that make people that disrupt our satiety centers. So like me, I can tell I'm genetically have a leaner, like my brain wants me to be leaner. I can tell. But when you gain a lot of weight and gain a lot of adipose tissue, a lot of inflammatory things going on, it can actually change the way your brain signals with your gut and all this different stuff that makes you hungrier. So then when you try to then lose weight, even if you're trying your best and trying to eat whole and processed foods, you become hungrier as you try to lose weight. So it's both. It's quite complicated, but it's very likely both. And I can't tell you a percentage of each, but it's definitely both.
So, can you real quick before we jump into just too much of like GLP-1s and kind of get into some of your work, what exactly does a GLP-1 do inside of us biologically that helps somebody lose weight?
Yeah. So GLP-1, for anybody listening, those are the crazy new drugs everybody's talking about. Ozempic, everybody says it's Ozempic, and I'll get into the specifics there. So glucagon-like peptide 1 is the full name of it. We actually make it naturally in our intestines. It is used for helping our blood sugar regulation naturally. It helps our pancreas make more insulin. Insulin is what helps our whatever we eat, carbohydrates, whether it's bread, sugar, whatever, helps that get into our muscle cells or fat cells or store it or use it. So that's why we have to make it. So the GLP-1 helps our pancreas make more insulin. They found this out because they used to do studies where they injected glucose right in the veins versus have people drink glucose. And they found that people that drank the glucose, their insulin levels went higher than when they just injected it straight into their blood. So they're like, oh, there's something going on here. Well, it happens to be something in your intestines that helps your pancreas make more insulin.
Hmm.
And there were animal models. They found that, oh, it's probably related to appetite as well, and some of these other things. Well, what they did though, our own natural GLP-1 is broken down within like a minute or two, and eventually these smart scientists found ways to uh, find similar GLP-1 that is not exactly our own GLP-1. They found ways to make it look like it that's not broken down by our own body, and they saw people's blood sugars were improving when they had troubles improving their blood sugars with other methods. Then they saw like, oh, and people's appetites were improving as well. So now they're starting to design these things in ways that hit these receptors, these GLP-1 receptors all over the body in different ways that help improve appetite. And so the newest ones, they knock out hunger cravings and also thoughts about food. You know, you're talking about that being preoccupied with food. Something about them, like they talk about this food noise, is like thinking about food all the time. And I know wrestlers starving themselves all the time,
Living
thinking
meal
about
to
food.
meal, not on
Yeah.
time, just
And
meal
just,
to meal.
I mean, my brother talks about how he just like, you know, after nationals, all he could think about was like whatever stupid meal it was. I don't know what it was, but you know, he was a 149 pounder, just ripped and just like, like just thinking about that. But like, imagine having a lot of weight and still thinking about it all the time. You just ate and you're still thinking about the next meal. So that's another thing that makes it tough. GLP-1 medicines hit receptors in the brain that just shut it down, or at least dampen it to where you can then start working on those habits that you kind of know you should do, you're just struggling to do. That's the gist.
So with GLP-1s, do you think that these are good for anybody trying to lose weight, or is this like a case by case where if you're, 400 pounds and it's hard for you to move, this is a good way to kickstart it and then build those habits while you're kickstarting this? Or do you recommend like how long would you keep somebody on this and what starting point would you suggest to put somebody on something like this?
So they were studied in people, well, they're first studied in those with type 2 diabetes, obviously for the blood sugar regulation, but they've been studied in those with obesity. And the way that they defined that was anyone with a BMI or body mass index of 30. I have a feeling, Max, I bet your BMI was around, it was 30 or so when you were wrestling. Because I know
I'm
mine.
still like 34 today.
See, look, you'd qualify for the mess. So like I had like a 32 BMI when I was wrestling. So for those listening, like BMI, like we don't have too many maxes or linebackers coming into the office with those. But so we use BMI because most of the average population, they're not coming in all muscled up. So 30 BMI and above, or it's a 27 BMI and above, plus what's called like a weight related comorbidity. And that would be any weight related condition or disease. So, like type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, uh, obstructive sleep apnea, those types of things. So, that's what they studied it in. So, when we look at like who to start these medicines in, if somebody's like you see the Hollywood stars, they got their fancy concierge doctors that they're paying a ton of money to, who will just write them whatever drug that they want, and they're just using the drugs for 10, 15 pounds of vanity weight loss. That's not the ideal candidate. It hasn't been studied in this population. I wouldn't prescribe it in anyone like that unless they used to have obesity. They're struggling to keep their weight off and they're starting to regain. That's someone I might put the medicine on to make sure they don't regain their weight. But in general, if they're just trying to lose vanity, small amounts of weight that's not going to help improve their health, we're not supposed to prescribe it anyway.
What
So
would
yeah,
be the
go ahead.
downside in that? Sorry. What would be the
Yeah,
downside in that type of individual? Or is it just because it's not studied? You don't really know the.
So two downsides. So one of the things is that we can't even keep up with the demand, the supply. And I would say we, like I'm a big pharma manufacturer, but the big pharma manufacturers can't even keep up with the demand. So like ideally it's reserved for those where it's actually indicated. But let's just hypothetically say supply wasn't an issue. The risk is that we haven't studied it. So what people are worried about is that if they go on it, it's likely that many of them will need to stay on it in order to keep that weight, even if it's just vanity weight, the weight off. So, like, what if they go on it, go off of it, and they're doing this yo-yo thing? The worry is that in leaner individuals, you worry about muscle mass loss and bone loss from yo-yo dieting. Now we're yo-yo GLP-1ing, and it just hasn't been
Mm.
studied. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's okay. In fact, maybe it's cardioprotective or preventing heart attacks and all sorts of stuff. It just needs to be studied. So that's pretty much the thing. And these things do have side effects. There's no free lunch. Like we see reports of
I
certain
love that
things.
you said that because I feel like so many people are like, "This is great, everybody should do it," and it's like, I'm really skeptical when I hear something like that.
Yeah, this is where you have to look at the benefit versus the risk of things. And so like in somebody with obesity, like uh, like if you can improve their quality of life, reduce their obstructive sleep apnea, prevent a heart attack, the benefits far outweigh the risks. But if you're in somebody that's super healthy and just want to lose 5 to 10 pounds, all of a sudden we don't see any clinical benefit. And now there's like pretty much only a potential for risk. That's the key. Cause like that's why we don't do it otherwise. Like imagine if I like, all right, Kim Kardashian, I'll give you some of this medicine. And she had a really bad reaction, ended up in the hospital, had a kidney injury because she's dehydrated and throwing up. I'd be in hot water, so like I don't want to do that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. So it's basically like the law, because how long have these been in mass application? Like, is there any 10-plus-year data? I know they've been around longer than people think, but like, what is the long-term data on continuous usage of this stuff?
Yeah, so they were first approved in 2005, a medicine called Byetta, but that was a short term. It was a twice a day injection. People aren't prescribing that anymore. So like I don't know how many years of data we have on that, but it was approved in 2005. So like if you looked at, there's no way anybody's on that drug anymore. It's such an old, outdated drug. But like, so yeah, they've been out for 2 decades. But the newer ones, what everybody talks about. So Ozempic is semaglutide. Wegovy is also semaglutide. It's a higher dose. Ozempic is for type 2 diabetes. The Wegovy is for weight management. Ozempic was approved, I believe, in 2017. Um, and then Wegovy was approved in 2021. Just last year, we had a 4-year long study on the Wegovy version for people taking that higher dose of semaglutide. Looks very safe in those with cardiovascular disease, so heart disease plus obesity, excess weight. A lot of positives. Looks like it reduces heart attacks, all sorts of stuff. Doesn't look like there's any signal for harm. Um, and then we have some other 3-year data on some of the newer drugs. The one's called tirzepatide. That's the newest one. That's Zepbound and Mounjaro, if you've heard those terms. And we've got like 2 or 3 years of data. There's going to be more coming out. And then those are what's called randomized controlled trials where they give somebody a placebo or the active drug and they watch the two. And so you have two groups of people and you can see the differences between them. But we have longer studies looking at what's called observational types of studies where you can look at medical records and kind of see what happened to these people. They're not as powerful or not as strong, but like you can get a lot more patient data and a lot more years looking at it that way. It doesn't seem like there's any signal for something scary yet. That's what everybody's like. They're waiting for the shoe to drop. I mean, like I love these drugs. I'm very, I would say, bullish on them, but like so far so good. But I don't want to mess around with starting to play around with like giving them out to people that may not have as much benefit because ethically and medical legally, I don't really want to end up talking to the judge about why I gave it to somebody for
Right.
not a good reason.
What
So
you said
go
there
ahead,
is no
Max.
free lunch. Sorry, Ryan. There is no free lunch. Like, what are the side effects with these? What do
Yeah.
people need to manage? I know dosage, it's like a lot dose dependent, but
Yeah.
Yeah, take us through some of that.
Most common side effect is nausea by far. The drugs hit receptors in the brain that affect nausea, and they're trying to make these drugs to where they don't hit the same receptors. Is kind of an interesting thing, but nausea is by far the most common thing we see, and there are actually nutritional things to minimize it. Instead of the pizza and burgers, which are like intuitively like, yeah, probably shouldn't eat pizza and burgers, but people try to stress test the medicines. They're like, all right, well, now that I have this medicine on board, well, I'll go out for pizza. Instead of eating the whole pie, I'll eat a slice. And they can, but heavier, fattier meals, especially in the beginning, you can do it a little bit later down the line, but in the beginning, we notice people get really nauseous from that. It kind of sits in the stomach and they just feel terrible. So nausea is the most common thing. Mild for most people. Moderate to severe is uncommon, but we do see it. Like I just had a patient, I had to like make sure they're staying hydrated so they didn't end up in the hospital. Um, uh, and give them sometimes anti-nausea medicine. And then in the end, it usually resolves for 99% of people, it resolves over time, but you stay at a low dose and only go up if they're tolerating. If they're still having like a lot of nausea, you don't want to go up in the dose because then they'll feel terrible. The the next side effects we see is constipation. That one it slows down your GI tract, so food's not moving as readily through. Make sure people are staying physically active. That keeps things moving. Plenty of water, plenty of fiber, and generally that takes care of it. Some people get reflux because things aren't moving as well through the stomach, so it has more chance to kind of go up to your esophagus. Um, and that can happen. So the same kind of thing, lighter meals, sitting upright. If they have a history of reflux though, like it can worsen it. So we'd be sure to let them know about that. Some people get diarrhea. It's usually self-limited, doesn't last too long. Once in a while, people get tired from it, and we thought that it was because people weren't eating. Like, oh yeah, of course you're tired. You're not eating, but there's something about the medicine that hits receptors that likely just make people tired, and it usually resolves over time. But I do have some patients that they're just still kind of tired after they notice it a day or two after the injection, and then it gets better throughout the week. If you lose weight too quickly, which does happen, you can develop gallstones and you can get your gallbladder taken out because you get a gallbladder attack. So that's the most usually the most that's the most common severe thing we see.
Why would that happen from losing weight too quickly?
Yeah, there's a change, change in the mixture composition of your bile as you lose weight. Your bile is made up of cholesterol and bile salts and some of these other things, and there can be a change in that, and you precipitate the stones. I don't know.
Okay. Wow.
It's kind of it's you do it with bariatric surgery, any type of diet where you lose weight too quickly. It's a risk. So I make sure to monitor people's weight loss. I don't let them lose more than like about 1% of their body weight per week. So, for example, if they're 300 pounds, I don't want them losing on average more than 3 pounds a week. 'Cause that helps prevent that.
Gotcha. So how much does this like when you're prescribing this, how long is this? Are you saying, this is until you get to a certain weight, or this is for, low dose for a long period of time? And how much are you focusing on like, hey, make sure we're, strength training, changing habits, implementing other changes into your lifestyle as well?
Yeah, the guidance is that they're for the most people, it's probably a long, indefinite medicine, just like blood pressure medicine or anything else. However, some people, when you look at, they've done these crossover trials where they randomize people then to a placebo later on while they're taking the medicine. There are some people that keep the weight off, and they're going to do some studies and trying to figure it out. I have a feeling I know who could come off of them if they want to, but most people will likely at least be on a low dose maintenance to keep that food noise and that hunger and satiety at bay. Every one of my patients gets a strength training program. I have a program called Lift RX. I don't know what else to call it. I'm like, well, I'm a doctor. Lifting is good. I don't know,
I
prescribing it.
like it.
So, so,
That's awesome.
so it's a simple like 3 day week. So like I can't force people to do it, but like
Iron Summit is brought to you by Bridge Athletic. Looking for a way to streamline your training programs and deliver exceptional results? Check out our friends at Bridge Athletic. Their platform is packed with over 300 templates and 1,500 instructional videos courtesy of subject matter experts like Exos, FMS, and Hyperice, making program design both efficient and impactful. Our listeners can take advantage of an exclusive offer. For a limited time, get your first 30 days free and your next month at 50% off when you use code Iron Summit, all caps. That's code Iron Summit, no spaces, all caps, for 30 days free plus 50% off your second month at bridgeathletic.com. Check it out and start assigning custom programs directly to your athlete's mobile device.
I tend to get when people follow me on social media, like right before the podcast, I just posted like, hey, instead of trying to lose that last 10 pounds, why don't you start trying to gain that first pound of muscle? Because everybody's obsessed with some sort of number in their mind. Like, I got to hit 140 pounds because that's what I was in high school or college or when I got married. And I'm always like, you're just picking out random numbers. You don't like what you really want is to look and feel better. And like just by trying to lose more weight, you may not be happy when you get down to that weight. So everybody, I strongly encourage strength training. There was a big push about the potential muscle loss from these drugs. We're publishing a case series on this soon. We did DEXA scans on patients, and we're doing a bigger, longer study. And we had patients not lose any muscle and gain muscle while taking these medicines, but only if they're optimizing their protein and optimizing their strength training. So I'm just very aggressive, I guess you could say, at promoting the strength training.
So
Yeah,
is a lot of
that's really cool. I think
the oh, sorry, Ryan. I was going to ask, are a lot of the associations with catabolism of muscle mass due to just the fact people are losing so much general weight that muscle mass is being lost alongside of it, but you can mitigate that through the correct protein consumption, strength training alongside. And on the same side of that coin, like this goes to like, because I know there's the medical application, but I do know a lot of people taking these for vanity. Like, can you take these and add muscle, or is it going to hurt that effort?
yeah, is this a bodybuilding drug now?
It is. It's like I'm always telling like I have a lot of bodybuilders that follow me, and I've helped them out as being their doctor over the years, and like a lot of them use it just terrible, illegal, dangerous drugs. And I'm always like, don't use these medicines. But I guess if you're gonna choose between using clenbuterol and like T3 to thyroid
Yeah.
replacement and all sorts of crazy things, I'm like, these would be the safer. If you're gonna do one of the, like, if you're gonna choose, I suppose go with these medicines. It's gonna be about like the bodybuilders are gonna use it because like if it wipes out their hunger and cravings, because it's similar to cutting weight, like when you're getting ripped to
Yeah. It's like,
shreds
how
and you're
much are you
just
willing to suffer? Yeah.
yeah. So it would take away the suffering. Like you just crank up the dose and you're just like, no, I feel good. Good now. So there's nothing about them that seems catabolic in nature, like specifically beyond the calorie deficit, the fewer calories that you eat. So I would bet on that as well, based on what I'm seeing clinically, and we're doing our study. But like I think it's mostly just a calorie deficit, just similar to what you would see with any other type of diet or bariatric surgery or anything else.
Would there ever be a case where I mean, I guess not if somebody's super obese, but like, I mean, there's other drugs that do similar, not similar things, but like if you were taking testosterone, right, and you're increasing your muscle mass, you could be losing weight through other avenues as well. Would you ever point somebody to a different type of drug to help with their general fitness, to increase their metabolism, to increase, instead of GLP-1s, or is this is the catch-all that's a lot easier to just get directly where you're trying to go?
It's the most important one right now. So there are future drugs that they're coming out where the molecule, the GLP-1 molecule, the semaglutide specifically, is GLP-1 by itself. The newest
Right.
one, tirzepatide, that's out that I mentioned, it hits two different receptors, GIP, and it's a similar type of they call it an incretin in our body. Hits GIP and GLP-1. The newest one coming out next year is probably going to be published. I don't know if it'll be available next year. You can get it on the underground. I don't recommend anybody doing this. It's called retatrutide. Retatride.
Not
It
medical
actually,
advice.
yeah, not medical. Please don't. You can get it. You can get it. I just don't recommend it. I have patients that have been in the clinical trials and they're melting the fat off because it hits GLP-1, GIP, and it also hits glucagon. And glucagon does actually have a metabolic rate increasing component to it. And there may be some other what we call like lipolytic, like it actually helps break down the fat in your body and specifically in the liver, but like there's probably other uh, areas of the body as well. And I think that's going to be the future. There are some drugs. They're trying to block myostatin. If you guys know what that is, one of the governors
Uh-huh.
that we have on building muscle. So if you block myostatin, you don't have to do anything. You'll start building muscle. We've all seen the cow. Like there's probably like you
Yep.
could probably Google the
Yeah.
cow or
Yeah.
the
The
yeah. So
myostatin.
like
Yeah.
they're trying. Yeah, they're trying to develop these, and what they want to do is combine it to where we're going to have bodybuilders just like abusing these drugs. They're going to be jacked and just building tons of muscle from all the anabolics plus these myostatin inhibitors. But for patients like who struggle with their weight, I mean, like right now, it's yeah, getting their appetite under control. But then when the retatride comes out, it's gonna have an effect on the metabolic rate, and then they're going to be components of building muscle, probably at some point. Um, but I'm still a big proponent of the strength training because I'm not so sure even if they build the muscle, it's functional. Like you can build muscle, but is it can actually be able to do anything with it? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's
I
the.
feel like go ahead, Mac.
I was gonna say where like I totally understand these in a medical context, the context you're using them in with people who are obese and the risk reward is great, but like from a moral standpoint, if you're just taking it for vanity, like are you doing the work? Like, are you actually changing? I just don't know how to think of them in this context yet. And I find myself on this like fence that I don't know. I just don't know how to perceive these things. It's like, it's a little bit like steroids and performance enhancing drugs. Like that was the easy path to adding muscle tissue, right? Now you have an
Yeah,
easier path to losing fat tissue.
yeah,
It's just a whole new arena. It's a new way
yeah.
to think about
So as yeah, the thing is with anabolic steroids that makes different. Like there are harms that come from the anabolic steroids. So like that's why we're kind of like, I don't know if you should take these and whatever. You can increase your risk of X,
it. Yeah, they
Y,
have
Y,
very
Z.
specific and noticeable health detractors. Whereas these GLP-1s, it's
Yes.
not in your face, which then makes it even more morally like, is this amazing or is this a bad thing? Like, what's going
Yeah,
on?
I mean, that's why it needs to be studied. Like, it just needs to be studied. I will say, like, if you think about it from a technology standpoint, like, let's think about phones, for instance. We used to have like Morse code. We had telegrams. We had to send letters, and then oh, yeah, we have a rotary phone. Oh, we got a digital phone. Now we have the Zach Morris. If you guys watch Saved by the Bell, those huge, huge cell phones, and then all of a sudden, like now we basically have the most powerful tiny little computers in our pocket. So like I love technology, but you have to make sure it's safe. So yeah, as long as it's safe, I mean, like I could see a world where if they figure out it's safe, and probably the newer versions are going to be even safer and safer, I assume, unless they start adding on some weird molecules, receptor things that are they don't even know are going to cause all sorts of issues. But let's just say it's safe. Like you could see a world where like now we're all just taking them just because like they're gonna help us prevent heart attacks and stuff like that. I don't know. I can't. I wish I could guess. I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird though too. Kind of your point, Max. Like you don't really value something if it comes easy. So if you're not building the habits along the way, I don't know how. I don't know. It's just like it's a weird box to put in. If you're like, hey, when I start to gain some weight, I just start, taking this drug, and then I get back down to the weight I want to be. You don't build that like discipline, resilience, like work ethic, consistency that, bleeds into other aspects of your life. Um, Especially when we're talking about a population like a bodybuilding population that's like, hey, this is a way for me to like basically shortcut the work that I need to do to get to where I'm trying to go. Yeah, it's a weird time. I wonder how long do you think before we have a lot more clarity with this? I know you said we have like a 4-year study right now.
Yeah. I mean, give it another few years. The thing is, like, the newer, like, once a newer drug comes out and it hits a new receptor, the time starts over. We
Yeah.
gotta see what that does. We don't know what that does. We have no idea.
Yeah.
We're gonna,
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well,
it's cool
yeah, we
times,
had
but
to.
yeah.
It's really all these small molecule drugs and peptides are changing. And we had a gentleman on last week who's like he's one of the thought leaders in peptides, and he was talking about there's like I don't know, have you heard of like BAM15, which is like a fat lipidization peptide, and then SLU, I can't remember the whole. It's got like SLUP PD33 or something, which is an exercise mimetic. So you just
Yeah,
take in,
that's
and your body thinks you exercise. Like you're
yeah,
starting to get into
insane.
just like the technology is
They
like
just
just
gotta study
evolving
it.
daily. Yeah,
They gotta study it because things can look really good, and then they're big pharma spending billions of dollars to acquire these companies that are making these things, and then you'll see, like, it'll get past phase 1 where they're just doing small little trials. They'll get into phase 2 where they're looking at larger groups of humans, and all of a sudden they're like, "Ooh, their liver enzymes just bumped up," and, "Ooh, someone just had XYZ. We can't go to phase 3." Like, and boom, there goes $1 billion. Like, this is
yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah,
So
so as long as they're
in the
studied, I don't know.
life cycle of GLP-1s, and I know there's multiple and multiple receptor medications coming out. So we're like these look good, but we don't know for sure like long term. Like where are we in that life cycle?
I would say GLP-1 by itself, I'm strongly confident these things are good. Um, the GLP-1/GIP, I'm pretty confident, but we're gonna see there's some bigger studies coming out that will look at, the heart attack stuff just like they did with just the GLP-1. I have no idea. The thing that I'm really skeptical about is the glucagon one because I mean, it looks really good on paper. They're improving all their metabolic markers, but these people lose a ton of weight very fast. Like, what's going on there? Is it possible that while they're losing a lot of weight, it could be harming in some other way that actually increases heart attacks and all sorts of stuff? I don't know. So I'm very confident about GLP-1. Pretty confident about the GLP-1/GIP. Uh, Beyond that, I don't really have much confidence at all. It's
What would it take for you to see in like studies or just like anecdotally to like put yourself or your family on something like this, somebody that's a healthy individual, um, versus like a patient that obviously the risk reward we talked about makes sense.
yeah.
What would make this like an everyday person type of thing in your
Yeah,
mind?
that's a great question. So I'll just take myself for example. I'd feel comfortable taking a small dose like right now. I don't need to, but I'd feel comfortable as long as I didn't, like, it was just a small little bit and I didn't really have much of a weight effect. But to go on like higher doses and like see some sort of little bit of weight loss from it and take it longer term, I'd want to see at least a couple years of data. It's probably okay, but like
Yeah,
I don't know. I
yeah,
wish we
yeah.
could see more like 10-year heart attack data. That's really what I'd want to see is 10 years. That's not going to happen though.
What just to Oh, sorry. I want to come back to the heart attack point. I have one other because I know there's thyroid cancer, something people have talked about, dispel it. I want to have you touch on that. But real quick, just so we talk about dosing, because a lot of people are doing this on their own for better or for worse. What is a like standard dose? What's a small dose? What's a big dose of
Yes.
semaglutide?
So, yeah, semaglutide specifically, the lowest dose is 0.25 milligrams. The next dose is zero point 0.5 milligrams, and you go up to 1 milligram. Then you go to one. If you're Wegovy dosing, it's 1.7 and then 2.4. Ozempic, though, goes 0.25, 0.5, 1, then 2. Now, the Ozempic pen, though, like some people don't tolerate a big jump from like 1 to 2. So the pen actually on Ozempic, you can do in between dosing so that they can bridge that gap. Um, Whereas Wegovy, they made the stupid pen, so you have to jump all the way, which I just don't think was a good idea, but whatever. And then tirzepatide is 2.5, then it goes to 5, then it goes to 7.5, then 10, then 12.5, then 15. It goes in 2.5 milligram jumps, and that's usually well tolerated.
So
And then,
what?
yeah,
Go ahead.
no, you go, Ryan. Sorry.
So why would they? Why would I guess dosage wise, it's not based on body weight. It's just based on how much you're trying to lose or how much of this drug you're trying to take. Because I would think
Yeah.
like if you're 300 pounds, your dose should be a lot different than if you're 200 pounds, right?
It gets into this thing called pharmacokinetics, and like some drugs are based off of body weight. Many are actually not, because it gets into our serum levels. So as long as you're getting your blood levels up to a certain amount, it usually has the effect you want. That's the gist of it. And I'm not a pharmacologist, but like, we have to learn about it, because some drugs are weight based, but it's actually most aren't. So you know how you see like the Tylenol or whatever, it's like, yeah, you can take 1,000 milligrams or whatever
Okay.
at a time.
Would you ever give this to like, let's say there's a severely obese, 12-year-old kid? Would you give this to a child?
Yeah, so it is approved. Wegovy, tirzepatide or Mounjaro or Zepbound is not approved yet in those. So it has been studied. I haven't done it too much, and you don't see it too often, because like the parents, you try to do all the different things before you jump to drugs. There's been a big push that they're just drugging these kids. Like, I know a lot of pediatric obesity specialists, and it's like they don't jump to the drugs right away, because you want to make sure that it's a very special time where they're growing and all this stuff. You
Yeah.
gotta make sure the benefits outweigh the risks. So I don't do it. That I get requests for it. I'd feel comfortable doing it if I did a comprehensive exam and history and all that stuff. But like, I don't do it.
Let's talk on like the longer term data you'd like to see on heart attacks. Why is that? And also the thyroid cancer. I know that was like maybe an animal study, or I don't, or it could be
Yeah.
just some on the internet. It's full of
Yeah,
crap.
so they have a black box warning for thyroid cancer. It's a specific type of thyroid cancer, called medullary thyroid cancer. And rodents, they have these receptors on the specific cells that give rise to the specific type of thyroid cancer. They're these C cells in the thyroid, and rodents have the GLP-1 receptors on those C cells, and they see that it grows and may increase risk of thyroid cancer in rats. Humans and primates, we don't have those receptors readily available on our C cells in our thyroid, and so it's not been seen in humans. It was a concern in rats. It's hypothetical. We don't give it anybody with a family history of that type of cancer, um, just to be safe. And you can actually look at the genetics. You can see genetic propensity if you really wanted to. But so I'm not concerned about thyroid cancer, because it just likely doesn't happen in humans, and if it does, it's very, very rare. The heart attack thing, the only reason I say heart attack, so in people with a history of heart attacks, it reduces the risk of the next heart attack. In those who are healthy that want to prevent a heart attack, it just hasn't been studied. If I had to guess, I think there's probably a benefit, but the reason you'd have to do a long, long, long study is because healthy people don't have heart attacks as readily as unhealthy people. So the reason in these trials they pick unhealthy is because they don't need to have as many participants in there, because what they need to do is power it, meaning they have to see a number of heart attacks on both the placebo and the experimental side. And in order to get enough heart attacks, you have to get people that are prone to heart attacks. Whereas like we'd have to have thousands and thousands of like us in these trials, like and follow for long periods of time, because you're not going to see a heart attack in us. Um,
Hopefully.
Hopefully not. Hopefully
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, that
No,
makes
Yeah.
sense. That's a tough study group for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
this
that's
has been super informative, very interesting. I like without don't want to put words in your mouth, but kind of overview is these are really effective, especially for those who are obese, and the benefits definitely outweigh the risk in almost all of those scenarios. For those who are doing this as a vanity drug, probably just really consider you are taking a drug. This is like a do your own risk
Yeah.
reward
That's right.
analysis, but you're not recommending that at this point in time.
I would not. I would not.
awesome. Well, I think that's such a Yeah, I think this is such a hot button topic right now, and there's so much misinformation out there. So really appreciate everything that you've given us today, and want to be respectful of your time. Is there you want to shout out real quick where people can find you
Yeah.
on social media online?
Instagram's good. Dr. Nadolski, Dr. Nadolsky. You can follow my brother too. If he's Dr. Carl Nadolski. I took the Dr. Nadolski, even though he's older than I am and was a doctor first.
You got there
He's
first.
always like, "What the hell?" He gets so pissed. It's so funny. You can follow him too, but you'll find us both. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again for your time. And we'll definitely get you back on, because that was not
Perfect.
enough time to pick your brain.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Thanks.